All right, last session of the day. Welcome to this session. We're going to talk about Twilio's mobile core and why it is truly the engine behind our super SIM. Now, let me introduce myself first. My name is Jonas. I've been with Twilio now for just over 8.5 years. I started off building a Twilio client once upon a time. I'm more of a back-end guy, so I built most of the things behind the scenes. We took all of that stuff and scaled it out to our voice connectivity platform that I was doing for about 5 or so years. Then fast forward, joined the video teams and helped them realizing their vision. And the last 1.5 years, I've been focusing on our IoT business, and in particular, of course, our mobile core and our super SIM. Now, I'm actually going to start with the conclusion of this talk. So I'm claiming that owning the mobile core gives you, the customer, and I know that most of you probably don't know what a mobile core is just yet, but obviously I'm going to go over that today. But the fact that Twilio now owns the mobile core gives you, the customer, the control that you truly want over your IoT devices. You want to be able, through a REST API, for instance, shut down a device you think that someone stole. Like that traffic light that you put the device into shouldn't be moving. You want to be able to detect that and shut it down. You also want to have the flexibility. After you deploy your IoT devices, maybe you come up with some new use cases. But by owning the mobile core, we can give you the REST API or account portal access where you can build new control over your devices you didn't have before. Also, which is really important as your fleet grows, as you become successful and go from one device, obviously started in the garage, because everyone has to start in a garage, and then you move on from that to 10, 100, 10,000 devices, getting insight into what's going on with your device, it becomes more and more important. For instance, why are some of my devices in Southern Europe consuming more data than my devices in Northern Europe? If you slice and dice that, maybe you find out that a few devices that are consuming way more data than everyone else. Why is that? You need that insight. And if you have one device, it doesn't matter. But if you have 10,000, it does truly, truly matter. So keep this in mind. I will be coming back to this towards the end, and hopefully you agree with me that owning the mobile core will actually give us this. By the way, can you turn on my timer? So it was like 2 minutes. All right. So in order to do this, we really, really need to understand how cellular networks work. How does your IoT device get internet access? How does it register with the network? So most of my talk will actually have nothing to do with Twilio. It will just talk about how cellular networks work. This applies to anything that connects to a cellular network, including in the device you have in your pocket. So we need to learn about that to fully understand why owning a mobile core is important. And then I also want to take a deep dive into all the messages that are exchanged between carriers to see what's in those messages. And if we are on the path of those messages, what can we do with it? So we're going to look at that as well. And towards the end, the last 5 minutes, we'll actually talk about the Twilio mobile core and see what it can do for us. All right, hope that makes sense. All right, so the mobile core. Now, it depends on the underlying technology. It's 2G, 3G, 4G. They all have cool different names if you read the specifications. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of machines running software somewhere, and they are powering. They're the core of the mobile network. So collectively, I'll just name all of these machines mobile core. We'll see what it's really called later on, but that is what I mean by the mobile core. But before we get into the details, let's just agree on what we're trying to achieve. Right, so you have an IoT device, a scooter, for instance. You want to get internet connectivity to it because, as you guys know, I walk up to the scooter, I'm going to try to unlock it so I can go home or wherever I'm going, right? In order to do that, your backend, this beautiful box at the lower end corner there, can unlock your device if it can talk to it. So that's all we're trying to achieve. In order to do that, well, device first has to register with the network. In this world, it's called attaching to the network. Doesn't really matter. But the carrier network who you bought the SIM from has a database about your profile. They can check, do we like you? Did you pay your bill on time? And all of those things. And if they like you, they go like, yes, you're allowed to connect to the network. And if all goes well, you get your internet connection. Make sense? Pretty straightforward. This is what we're trying to achieve. Now, another scenario that's kind of important for this talk and in general is roaming. So all of you here that are living in the United States, for instance, you have one of the 4 major carriers probably. When you're here right now, let's say you're on AT&T, everything you connect to is all AT&T. But if you go on vacation to Europe, for instance, we all know we're roaming, right? It's not that big of a difference, and it kind of looks like this. Still, your IoT device, internet connection, please. That's all you're trying to achieve. In this case, it will have to register with the network. It ends up in the roaming network, the network you're visiting, you may say. The roaming network would look like, who are you? Looking at the traffic, do I know you? Are you my subscriber or someone else's subscriber? Obviously, in this case, it's someone else's subscriber, so it will simply proxy all of that traffic over to the home network, which once again has your database with your subscription information, and they can check once again, did you pay your bill? Also, are you allowed to roam? Remember when we had to pay $5 extra a month to actually roam somewhere else? That's also controlled by the home network. They know these, they can apply these policies. And then, if everything goes well, you have your internet connection again. Right? So this is the roaming scenario, which is very important for IoT devices as you actually deploy them around the world. Make sense? All right. Let's unpack all of these things. Let's see what's underneath these beautiful fluffy bubbles and see where we end up. So this is actually the 4G architecture at a very high level. I'll skip some boxes. Now, this world is an acronym soup. I'm not going to go through it because my entire talk will just be about acronyms. All of these acronyms up here, there are the correct ones. Feel free to Google them later on, find out what they mean. It doesn't matter so much for this talk, but there are actually 3 that I really want to talk about because they are important to us. So first off, I kind of hinted at in the roaming scenario 2 slides ago, the visited network, which is the top green box there with all the boxes, MME, S gateway, so on and so forth. That's the roaming network, the visiting network that you are roaming on when you're out traveling away from your regular home. The bottom one, the one in red, is the home network. That's the network you bought your SIM card from. That's the network that will bill you once in a month. And that's the network that have your subscription profile. Again, did you pay your bill, right? So that's the visited, and that's the home. Again, if you are here right now, and let's say you live in the Bay Area, you have AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and whatnot, all of those things belongs to that one carrier. When you go traveling, the top box belongs to someone else. Make sense? All right. That's another thing that I need you to remember as well, because I will mention it over and over. International Mobile Subscriber Identity. We call it IMSI, I-M-S-I, IMSI. It's just your globally unique identifier for your account. Just think of it as your account number. That's it. And there's actually structure to this madness. So the first 3 characters, 310 in this case, is the MCC, the Mobile Country Code. 310 happens to be United States. You all recognize this from the quote-unquote regular phone number schema, which is +1 for North America, +46 for Sweden, my home country, and so on and so forth. Same, different numbering scheme, works the same way. Then the next 3 digits is the MNC, the Mobile Network Code. In this case, 410, you can look this up on the internet, happens to be AT&T. So 310, 410 together uniquely identifies AT&T United States. Remember this, we're going to talk about this later on. And the last ones are just the MSIN, Mobile Subscription Identity Number. Just think of it as your account information. Right? So within AT&T United States, that's your unique account number. That's how they know you are you. IMSI, remember that one. All right, cool. So let's get into some of the more details here. What happens when you're trying to attach? And this is the real traffic. Again, the scooter is just trying to register with the network, attach to the network. It will scan the area, find a base station to connect to, send some traffic over to it. The base station will send that to the MME. Now, the MME is one of the more important components in the 4G network. It sits in the path of pretty much everything that goes on there. One of the things it will do in this scenario, when the scooter go like, hey, I want to log in, or attach, as we call it here, one of the things it will send over, IMSI. We need to know who you are. The MME will now look at it and go like, remember, MCC, MNC. Is this my subscriber, or is it someone else's? This is how the MME knows if it's roaming scenario or just a regular home scenario or non-roaming. I actually don't know what it's called when it's non-roaming. In this case, obviously, it is a roaming scenario, so the MME will have to talk to the home subscriber service. And it will send the traffic this way. Now, the HSS, the home subscriber service, glorified name for a database. Your subscription information lives there. The HSS sits in front of it. The green line represents diameter as the traffic. Now, I don't know if you heard about diameter. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about radius. Diameter is a pun on radius because this is kind of version 2.0. It's just a AAA protocol, very basic. So if you don't remember your AAA, authentication, authorization, accounting. So it hits the HSS, and the HSS will look in the database, find your subscription, and again, did you pay your bill? So if you own the HSS, guess what? You're in control. It's just software. Make something up. Hey, Scooter, you're not allowed to connect in San Francisco today because it's raining as always, right? Maybe you shouldn't base this decision on weather. The point is you can. You're in control. You have the flexibility to do whatever you want. Now, the next thing is, and we're trying to get internet connection, right? That's what we're trying to achieve here. So the next thing is the MME, which again is in the path of everything. It has to figure out your internet gateway, which is the P gateway that I just highlighted in green there again at the bottom. The P gateway has a lot of responsibilities. One of the main ones is, it is your internet breakout. Now, it's really IP breakout because you don't have to break out to the public internet. It could be breakout to break into your infrastructure. It's responsible for that. So the MME is responsible to finding out the IP or which P gateway to use. How does it do that? Well, there's actually a few different ways. I will only talk about the APN resolution because it's the most common thing. So the Twilio APN, and APN stands for Access Point Name. Our APN is super. Doesn't sound like much, but I'll tell you what it means in a second. So the MME sees which APN you're trying to connect to. You can have private.super, maybe to indicate you want to break out to your own infrastructure. It turns out it's just an FQDN. So the MME takes super, takes the MNC, MCC, and builds up a fully qualified domain name out of this. And guess what? DNS lookup. Super boring, I know, but this is actually what happens in 4G networks. This is how the MME finds out the IP address or the P gateway to use for your internet breakout. After that, MME again, as I said, MME is part of everything. MME has to create a tunnel. This protocol here is called GTP. It's GPRS tunnel protocol. Basic protocol, goes over plain old UDP, nothing special about it. One of the things that's part of this is, of course, hey, P gateway, I'm going to create a tunnel now. We're going to look into that traffic later on. If you're the P gateway, again, software, you have the control to do whatever you want. You decide. You wrote the code. In this case, the P gateway will obviously say yes, and if all goes well, you have your tunnel flowing this way. Now, I did not mention the S gateway, the serving gateway. It has a lot of functionality. For the purpose of this talk, don't worry too much about it. It sits there in the path. Make sense? All right. Now, the Twilio Mobile Core, as you may have guessed already, is the bottom half, the home network. So the Twilio Mobile Core is this. Now, I'm going to unpack that a little more later on. But for all carriers out there, all the visited networks, Twilio now appears as the home network for your devices. So we will get all of that traffic from all the carriers around the world will come to the home network, which happens to be the mobile core that we now own. All right. So I want to take a deep dive into these, look at some of the messages. These are messages that I captured from my own device in Twilio production. And we'll see what's in there, and hopefully we can figure out what to do with this information. So, always dangerous, but I'm gonna swap out here, and then Wireshark. It's the best thing to do live. Now, the two first messages has to do with authentication. We also obviously have the authenticate device. I'm not gonna go into them, they're not super interesting, but obviously we have to verify that you are you, right? And this is diameter. Now, the next two messages is the update location request, which is the, hey, I want to attach. So let's see what's in here. First of all, We obviously have the IMSI. We have to know who you are. That's obviously in this message. Otherwise, we don't know what to look up, right? So that's one of the things. The other thing that comes in over here is RAT type, radio access technology. I can tell here in the messages because the visited network told me that the device is connected to 4G network right now. So EU-TRAN, 4G. If it's 3G, it would say something else and so on and so forth. So we know, the HSS knows, one, who you are and what radio access technology you're using. The other thing is, and we talked about this a few times now, visited network. It looks like in this particular case, my device is on AT&T United States, 310/410. It's also in the message. And finally, that I want to show you is we also have information about the hardware you're running. So the IMEI is actually part of the message that I get. Remember, I'm the HSS in this case. If you own the HSS, you have the insight and flexibility to do whatever you want. Base your decision on weather, that's fine. Maybe not a good thing, but you can. And then the HSS can generate any kind of answer at once. Obviously, I have to follow the specifications. But the logic to generate it is up to you. In this case, we go success. For those of you who are HTTP inclined, so to speak, this is 200 OK. Also, I wanted to show you, we meaning the HSS, insert some subscription data that we want the visited network to enforce. And some of the things that we do is, for instance, hey, in this case, I want this particular device to get, I think it's, there's a lot of zeros, 100 megabits up and 100 megabits down. Please enforce that. And it's forced by the tower, the base station. It may not have the capacity because everyone are at the same place, but at least we ask it to. So we can suggest that. Also, and this may come as a shocker, but MSISDN, we call it MISTN because we're lazy when we say these abbreviations, that is your phone number. The phone number you think you have, it doesn't really work the way you think it works. This is actually what we use after you register. We give you a phone number. We can come up with anything. This is what's being used for routing. So the phone number you have is used for other things. If you want to know what, come to me afterwards. And then eventually we also insert a bunch of configuration about the APNs. So you can have multiple APN options. We can enforce various settings on each of those APNs. Comes from the HSS. So if you own the HSS, you're in control. You have the flexibility and the insight to do whatever you want. All right. So let's go back here. Sorry, I should have shown you this first because what I just showed you was where it was captured. So this was actually captured right in front of our HSS. All right, next one. The tunnel that we create, let's see what's in that traffic. As a reminder, it flowed this way. It was G2P, GPRS tunnel protocol. I captured traffic from one of my other devices at this point in production at Twilio, and this is the traffic that I got. So let's open this up. Let's zoom in. Again, we have the IMSI. Otherwise, I don't know who you are. So that's almost part of every request that's shared between carriers. We need to know who you are. I know that you use the APN. You selected super. Great. The P gateway can now base any arbitrary decision on that, up to it, just software. Here's a few things as well. I can see again, it's coming over the radio access technology 4G, so I can see that again. In this case, I said I actually captured this off another device. I was in Germany last week. Apparently, I was on E+ in Germany when I captured this traffic. Great. Now, the P gateway can decide to accept this or drop it on the floor or do whatever it wants. In this case, obviously, it's going to accept it. And a few things that's kind of interesting here. The P gateway is the one who assigns the IP address to your device. So we're in control of that. We also are in control of the DNS servers we want the device to use. So if you have connected your private network to us and you want to break into your own network, well, we could technically just give you your DNS service if that's what you want, right? We have the flexibility to do whatever we want because we own it. Make sense? So keep in mind everything we're seeing here now in the traffic scenario, because we will come back to it later, actually in just a few slides. So going back to the mobile core. So I already showed you the home network. You recognize the components, P gateway, the HSS. But let's unpack it a little more. Remember, with Twilio, we're born in the cloud, if you will. Everything we do is cloud native. All of the components that we have, that is the home network of a cellular network, is all deployed in Amazon. So that means we have the flexibility to do what we always do at Twilio. First of all, we can put a REST API at the bottom that you see there. This gives you control to do whatever you want. You can ask, hey, just kick off that device, because I think that traffic lights should not move 5 blocks, right? Let's just kill it. Also, the HSS, remember, we just saw the traffic it receives. This is the raw network traffic it gets from the far end. We saw what information is in there. So what we do, and we already do this, the HSS, well, you're trying to connect. So that's an attempt, and we can go like yes or no. No matter what, we push an event onto a bus that says, hey, Jonas tried to connect from Germany, this technology, so on and so forth. I thought it was great, so I let him through. And you throw that successful attempt onto a bus. We happen to use Kafka today, maybe use some other technology tomorrow. It doesn't matter. The point is, the HSS sees all of this and can throw events onto a bus. Same thing with the P gateway. If you're the P gateway, you saw the tunnel request. You have information in that raw network traffic too. We're the ones who are getting it. We can pub events like, hey, Jonas tried to create a tunnel, didn't like it. Well, fine, I'm going to be sad, but we pub that event on the bus too that says, Jonas tried to create a tunnel, I didn't want it. Fine, we put that on a bus. And what can you do with this? Well, all of you are also born in the cloud, I can imagine, that, well, it's just regular technology that we're all used to. So for instance, we push all of this to Elasticsearch. So we run pretty big Elasticsearch cluster within Twilio. And here, remember, I've been talking about giving you the insight. You can slice and dice in Elasticsearch to find certain things out. So remember the original use case of going back here. This is our test account, all the devices that we have on our test account. Now, I'm not going to go too much into it, but remember the first use case I said, what are my devices in Southern Europe consuming more traffic in Northern Europe? Well, guess what? These are the devices that we have on our internal test accounts. I can slice and dice here and go like, why is this one using more data? 262 happens to be Germany. I was in Germany last week, so this is probably me. But you could dive in here now and go like, what's going on here? And you can look into this traffic, and this looks like 310 United States. So you can now dive into this data, because at the end of the day, we take those events, throw them on a bus, and then various technologies can have stream jobs on them, come up with something else, or you can slice and dice in some tool like Elasticsearch. Doesn't matter, but you have the insight, which is important when you have 100,000 devices. If you have one device, I'm sure you can figure it out. And here I can go like, why are everyone in the US consuming so much data, let's say, which it really isn't much, this is 150 megs, but, so this is another view. Now I've sliced all the data based on individual devices, so to speak, actually individual IMSIs. So now I can see like, what is that spike there? What's going on here at the end? And I can just slice in on that one and find out, okay, so this is the IMSI that ends with 37. I don't actually know who's using that one, but I think this was me earlier today. There we go. 35, I know that one is mine. So the point being, you have the data, you have the insight. And again, one device doesn't matter, 10,000, it matters. You need this insight. And based on that, because of a REST API, you can decide, you know what, no more data for you, and you shut them down. All right? All right. So, whoops, should not start Slack on stage. Gone. And the final thing I want to get into as well, so that's the mobile core at the end. What about the boxes at the top? If you heard Andrews, our product manager for SuperSims, talk earlier today, he talked about the SuperSim had multiple IMSIs on them. So we now know what an IMSI is, right? If you're the scooter here over on the left, let's say you're in Europe, we can push different IMSIs onto your single SIM. Maybe we prefer IMSI Z for some reason, I don't know, and they have great coverage using network A and B. Well, you don't care. You just have great coverage. Then you take your scooter on a plane for some reason and fly to North America, and then we detect that and go like, all right, so you still have IMSI Z, because we had no clue you're going to fly over to the US. You're still going to have access, but it's not the best access. So we're going to push a different IMSI to your SIM card, and now you have greater coverage on network C and D. The nice thing is that as an IoT developer, you don't care. It just should work. And everything is still through the same API. You don't need to know these details. We need to know them. And now you know them, but in general, when you're an IT developer, you shouldn't have to. So this is the mobile core. So I hope now that towards the end here, that seeing the raw traffic, seeing what's in the messages, knowing a bit how it flows through a network, that owning the mobile core gives you, the customer, control. We have the one REST API, the one account portal, and it doesn't matter all of these carriers around the world. We're going to sign a new contract with the new carrier. All of a sudden, you get better coverage in somewhere far away. Another contract goes away because we don't like them anymore. I don't know. But the point is, you shouldn't care. One API, right? Still gives you the control. And it gives you the flexibility. As we deploy new code, which we do all the time, the evolving use cases, when we come up with new APIs, gives you more flexibility to come up with something else you didn't even think of when you deploy your devices in the first place. And I hope now that you see that having the traffic and all of this, throwing those onto an event bus, we can do whatever we want with that one, allow you to slice and dice that data in various ways, gives you the insight of your fleet. And again, once you just imagine when you have 100,000 devices, you need this insight. All right. So with that, that's actually all I had. So thank you very much.